Well, I haven't posted it yet because I just got home a little bit ago and voting ended at 8. But Chad, just so you know, you beat the Kiss Demon by 1 vote. So you've advanced in the Hambone tournament. So congratulations.
Was that my vote?
Huh?
Is that my vote?
Actually, it was a fan we have from Germany, Aaron Mennick. He's the one that put you over.
The Germans love us. Those of you that are listening now, just so you know, join the WNR podcast group if you're not on Facebook. Aaron's doing the Hambone tournament, and Chad picked up a victory today on the tournament.
I'm running through these fucking jabronis. Nobody's worse than me. Come on, I dare you to be worse than me.
I want the finals to ultimately be Chad Austin versus Awesome Kong. Not the black female wrestler, but the fat sloppy wrestler from the 1990s.
Oh, I was kind of hoping for me versus the Wolfman.
Like I've always said one of my favorite stupid things in wrestling is Awesome Kong and King Kong, and their tag team name was the Awesome Kongs. Like, you can't make your tag team name the name of one of the guys. That's like having Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, the Bobby Eatons.
Well, didn't I already tell you the story about them, right?
I don't think so.
About one of them, one of the big fat sloppies his name was Dewey, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I think last time Aaron and I talked about him on a podcast, we looked him up and he'd be dead. But one of them is surprisingly still alive. How that guy's avoided dying from diabetes, I don't know. But anyway.
Well, going back to like 91 or so, when Axel and Ian were down in Global. And, I mean, the reason why they wore masks, I don't know, I guess I didn't tell you this. The reason why they wore masks, because this is great too, because they didn't want their parents to know that they were wrestlers, because their parents didn't want them to be wrestlers.
Well, who else are they going to be?
Of course. I mean, can I get $20 on Pump 10?
The good news is, for their parents, they never actually were wrestlers.
No. And one of the guys got a phone call. Axel told me years later, like, he got a phone call during one of the global tapings, and he had to leave because his mom yelled at him. He had to come home, so it just left the not so awesome Kong to finish up whatever the taping. And I think if I'm not mistaken, Axel said he wrestled as both of the Ding Dong Kongs. Like, he went out and wrestled Axel in one singles match, and then came back later on and wrestled Ian in a singles match. God damn, dude, they're hams.
And a side note, they're the only guys that ever breastfed their mom.
After birth? Damn.
I'm pretty sure they probably lactated.
They opened up a neighborhood breastfeeding station. Them two tits out. Oof.
Yeah, this one guy was like, I don't know what he commented, but he said he like lived like 2 towns away from Awesome Kong or whatever, and was like trying to like talk him up or whatever. It's like, no, that guy was terrible.
He was talking him up, and he said he was terrible?
No, I'm saying he was terrible. I didn't say anything bad to the guy because he was just trying to comment on something. But yeah, he's like, he lived like 2 towns away from me. Like, yeah, I'm sure you knew because you could smell him.
That was Dewey. His mom would cattle call him when it's dinner time. Dewey? Get your awesome fucking Kong ass in here. Sloppy Joe. Sloppy Joe.
Shit. But we're back after a few weeks out of action here, and the episode of ECW we're going to discuss this week is from the ECW/IWA show.
Egg Dome.
Yeah, in the Egg Dome at Korakuen Hall in Tokyo. And I actually have here, and I know, Aaron, you said you have some questions too for us this week, because it won't take a long time to review the TV episode itself. Not that it's bad. It's just, it's just
nothing.
It's matches.
It's two matches.
I have a question though.
Sure.
Well, how did they somehow fit only 20-some hundred people into a 65,000 people dome at the Egg Dome? It looked pretty full to me.
Curtains.
Oh, they curtained off the whole entire ringside area.
Yeah. Like AEW should figure out how to do it.
It didn't look like the Egg Dome to me. It looked like the bar next to the Karaoke Hall.
But I have the results here from both nights of the co ECW IWA cards, so we will go through those for anyone interested to hear the results from both nights. Because I think
the sellout's going to be just based upon history itself is somewhere around, depending on setup, around 2,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
It's always going to be around 2,000 depending on setup. So, if you give me if you spit out a number anywhere around 15 to 2150 or so, then that's going to be respectable in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's actually a question I had in my notes or whatever. It was just, or not even really a question, just kind of an observation. Like, I know this wasn't like completely an ECW show, Nate, and I'm sure with the results we're going to see that it's probably more Japanese guys than ECW guys. But as a quote unquote ECW show, this is probably the biggest crowd they'd ever had, I would assume.
Yeah, Joey said it.
I'm looking here now, and they did two shows. They did one on August 10th at the Yokohama Cultural Gymnasium in Yokohama.
That place stinks.
Which that doesn't have that. The show we're talking about is the next night, but this one had. It looks like both according to this website, which is the Internet Wrestling Database, both nights was around 2,200 in attendance.
Yeah, that first place you announced, the gym. A lot of all Japan women ran there, and that's a full-fledged gym. Like, it could do, in my opinion, upwards of somewhere around $4,000, like of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a pretty big place because all Japan women ran there a lot, and they would kind of sell it out with around like 3,400. But Kurokian, like we just said, yeah, depending on the setup, it's always going to be around 15 to 2,000 is going to be a sellout. Which
right.
It's cool because it's also nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to work at the Kurokian, and it's a rundown, crabby building too. That's the best part. It's like imagine
it's like Japan's Sportatorium
or ECW Arena.
That's what I was saying. Was it almost kind of like Japan's ECW Arena?
Yeah, it's getting your host to drop you off in front of this building when you give him the address, and he's like, he's like, sir, this building no good.
Oh, colossal dump, and not dump Matsumoto either.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's a crabby building.
Oh, Colossal Kong.
I'm not even sure it's still around anymore, honestly. I think they redid it.
Baby.
I'll have to check with Scotty Astro on that one, but yeah, I think they redid the place because I think the Japanese girls basketball now host that gymnasium now.
Let's see here.
I could be wrong, or I could not care.
Actually, according to Wikipedia, it is still standing.
Standing? The Sportatorium was standing.
And I didn't say thriving. I just said standing.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
It's kind of like Ric Flair. It's not thriving, but it's still standing. But Aaron, I know you said you had some listener questions for us.
Well, I have two different things. I posed a question to our listeners, which I like to do sometimes, and also asked them to ask us anything they wanted to ask us or whatever. Um, well, not even that. Just
And it's more whatever
um,
question.
yeah. Basically, I said like I asked them a question and then said they could ask us anything they wanted to ask. And then you guys can answer um, the question I asked them, and then obviously answer the question they asked us. But the question I asked our listeners was, who is the um well, actually, I asked them two questions. Sorry. I asked them, who do they think is the most successful ECW original once leaving for other promotions, and also asked them who they thought the worst ECW champion of all time was. Okay. So those are the two questions I asked our listeners. And let me bring up their answers. And I got answers from three different listeners. One of them is Archie Mitchell. Um, so asking who the most successful ECW original was upon leaving for other promotions, he says it's Raven. And then for him, he said the worst ECW champion of all time is Ezekiel Jackson.
Oh,
Did
we already do this
and I'll
show?
go through, and then I'll go through our listeners' answers to these, and I'll ask you guys the same question.
Sure, that sounds great.
Aaron Minnick, the guy that helped Chad win the Hambone tournament, he said RVD is by far the most successful ECW original, and he said Justin Credible was the worst ECW champion of all time. And then Peter Winters said RVD was the most successful in-ring ECW original to leave, but he feels that Bubba Ray Dudley is the most successful overall. And he says the worst ECW champion of all time is Mr. McMahon.
Oh, yeah. All right. Take that. Just scratch that one. That doesn't even count. That's WWE ECW.
Well, my
So
answer actually answers into that, but so I'll ask Nate first. Nate, who's in your opinion, the most successful ECW original? You guys understand the questions, right?
Yes, yes, and I actually agree, kind of, sort of, with Peter, his answer, because I was going to say most successful past ECW is a tie for me, and it's Rob Van Dam and the Dudley Boys as a team. That would be my answer.
But what do you mean? As what champions? What?
Well, no. I'm just saying, like, just generally their success post ECW. I think they're the ECW originals that probably made.
Oh, I got you.
Made,
I understand.
Made the best out of their careers after post ECW. Would be RVD and because
Well,
I know Archie said Raven, but did Raven really have huge success outside of ECW after ECW? No. Now I'm not disagreeing with Archie about Raven. I love Raven. Raven's
he had a successful
his shit in TNA was
career.
great, but it wasn't as
even
huge.
even his stuff in WCW was good. You know what I mean? Like he had a good mid card, mid whatever career out of it, but I don't think he was.
But it's still mid. Either way you look at it, it's still mid. I mean, the answer is just, I mean, it's unequivocally, it's Bubba. I mean, if you look at body of work outside of ECW, it's Bully Ray. I mean, that take him aside, then you can throw Rob Van Dam into that mix completely right there. But you can't dispute that, like, somebody as pathetic as Bubba was supposed to be that went on that had, I don't know, was he in 2 Hall of Fames,
Right.
I mean, he's easily the most successful ECW, if you want to call him an original. Mm-hmm. I guess I call him an original because anybody that came in before '96, I would consider an original. But yeah, I guess Bubba would be Bubba would be an original, and RVD is just like he's kind of an anomaly because Rob Van Dam did everything on his own anyway. But yeah, Rob Van Dam still being successful. I think. I mean, sure, there's nobody there to see him, but there's nobody there to see Steve Macklin either.
I'm sure he's nice and high right now and feels pretty successful.
But yeah, I'd say Bubba.
I think Sabu's probably the biggest disappointment, right? I mean, would you put Sabu in the biggest disappointment category up there with, like Raven made his bed. Raven knew what he was going to do anyway, so I take Raven out of that. But it was going to be Sabu or Sandman that probably threw away, the biggest opportunity.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if you guys agree or not.
No, I agree. I agree, especially with Sabu.
It wasn't going to be Mikey. It wasn't going to be what's his name? Credible. It wasn't going to be him. And Dreamer goes without saying. It wasn't going to be Dreamer because he wasn't going to do anything without Paul's approval. Fuck Dreamer.
Let's
and I think. Sorry. I was just going to say the one that.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I was going to say the one that I think both companies kind of ECW original guy that they kind of dropped the ball on, and maybe he got in some of his own way or whatever was. I think Perry should have been a bigger deal than what he was.
Perry got in his own way.
Yeah.
Do you not agree? I mean, apparently one of you do. Yeah, everybody got in their own way. I mean, like, WCW was standing there at the door with, they had a Xerox machine right at the end of the ECW arena locker room door, handing out contracts to anybody that came to the door, and they all screwed it up.
And I mean, and I'll even give an honorable mention, not in ring, but he was smart enough to just go with the flow in WWE, realized they were not going to use him right as a wrestler, and became a commentator, and that's Taz. Taz turned fucking shit into sugar with that whole thing too. I'll give him honorable mention there.
Fuck yeah, brother.
He realized that the way he was going to survive in WWE was going to be, all right, my personality, that's fine. I'll sit in the chair next to Michael Cole and commentate. And he made a hell of a career out of it.
Yep.
Taz, as much as I love Taz, and he's definitely a friend of mine, he was never going to achieve any level of success that he was ever going to maintain at the level of ECW at being the height that he was.
No.
Not with the regime that was held at WWE at the time. There was just
no way.
And
you can just look at, I'll just use this as an example. At WrestleMania 2000, they have that hardcore, like the 24/7 hardcore battle royal thing. And as impressive as Taz looked in ECW, you see him in that ring with like 20 other WWE guys, and he just
looks see him in that ring.
Yeah, he just looks so underwhelming. And I'm not even dissing him. I'm just proving Chad's point that he just, in that land, he was not going to make it.
I thought it was quite ironic when you're talking about that match in particular that they started eliminating people at that point in that match to where it separated Taz. Like he wasn't standing in the ring, with Kane and
Viscera.
You know what I mean? Like the guys were starting to get eliminated to where I'm sure that wasn't done by an accident. That was done by design where they were going to make, we can't have Taz, in the ring standing next to all these guys that are 6'5" plus, and looking like a simpleton. So yeah, I mean that's exactly the way they hid his weaknesses. But I'm a big fan of Taz. I still am.
And then, like I said, the second question was, and I'll give my answer, and then you guys can give yours. And I was going with when I said like worst ECW champion. I know these guys, two of them answered the WWE ECW. And my answer's in that too, because I was going with the guys that held the actual ECW title, not that big silver thing that the WWE made or whatever. Um, so a guy that could be considered an ECW champion that I think is the worst one is a guy that I don't even hate the guy because he's a great fucking wrestler and he's phenomenal. But he just to me he's like the complete opposite of what ECW is supposed to be is Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, I see that totally.
Like Bobby
Nate,
Lashley's amazing. Don't get me wrong, he's a fucking superstar. But like when you think of like ECW, that guy is not somebody that should have ever been even considered an EC. Like I disagree when people are like, "Oh, Vince shouldn't have been ECW champion." It's like, nah, Vince was pretty. Even though he didn't understand it, like the character itself was pretty ECW. You know what I mean? He
yeah.
was outlandish. He said crazy
Let me
shit.
ask. Let
He
me
didn't
ask
give a
Nate
fuck.
this. Nate, do you think that Bobby Lashley woke up in that hotel room every single morning and looked at that title belt and thought, like, I'm the ECW champion?
No.
That's exactly that's all you got to say. There is no buts, what ifs, whys. He looked at that and was like, dude, I gotta carry this piece of crap around. It's so stupid. I don't,
But if
I don't belong here.
But if I had to go with somebody that held it when it was the actual ECW independent company, Johnny Hotbody was ECW champion, and that's pretty fucking pathetic.
Oh, come on, seriously. Now you're going back to where it didn't even matter. You got no. You got to go back at least if you're going to start crunching numbers and crunching title reigns. It's got to be anything after triple threat, I guess. Anything after Sabu, Funk, Douglas, anything after that time period is when you can start taking anybody that was a champion seriously. Johnny Hotbody. Seriously.
Well, if I had to go if I had to go that era, sorry, Nate, didn't mean to cut you off.
That's all right.
I liked the guy and I liked the character in ECW, but I'd say if we had to go post when the line was crossed, I'd say Steve Corino. Then.
Oh damn, dude! I didn't even think you were going to go anywhere near there. Why you think that was bad, Steve Corino?
Like I said, I don't mind Steve Corino and I liked the gimmick or whatever, but
my answer's obvious. Rhino.
I don't count.
They put the belt on him and the place went out of business.
Oh, that was all Rhino's fault.
I'm just joking.
No, the place went out of business and then they put it on Rhino. Is the better way to say it.
Rhino couldn't make all the towns because of the credit cards that were. Yeah, it wasn't Rhino's fault.
I was just joking. That was just my joke. But
no, you got heat with Rhino.
He killed the territory.
Well, I can't wait till my next convention when I see Rhino and tell him you got heat.
I think I would agree. With just the assertion that it was just incredible. I don't know. It's hard to pick because ECW, other than like you were mentioning, Aaron, back when it was like the fucking Cabrini College days, ECW through its run really never had a bad champion, so it's hard to pick like who's the worst of a pretty decent run of champions.
Well, let me ask you guys this. When you say just incredible, like you guys have obviously heard the term of go away heat, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, obviously nobody gave a shit about just incredible, in my opinion. This is the way I saw it as being in the business. Like nobody could explain to me why he was champion. Nobody can give me a definite answer as to why he was champion. And when he said he had heat, and I'm like, dude, he had go away heat. Like go away heat, not heat. Like people do not buy tickets to see go away heat.
Yeah.
People don't buy tickets when you're the champion and you got go away heat.
Yeah, The best he
I
ever
always-
was.
I
The
just
best
thought he
he ever
was-
was to be on the apron watching Lance Storm wrestle when they were the Impact players. I mean,
Well, I would have booked him. I would have booked him completely different. Like if you knew he had go away heat, then you just don't have him defend the belt. You have him back his way out of every defense. That way, that go away heat turns into somebody's going to beat him, right? Somebody has to beat him. Instead of putting him out there in matches with Jerry Superfoot Flynn and all these people and everything, nobody cared. It was not him that anybody gave a shit about. I can tell you this firsthand. Nobody cared about Just Incredible. It wasn't about him. But if you're gonna put a belt on somebody and they got go away heat, then you just don't have them defend the belt. Just make the people want to have them lose the belt instead of having them see him defend the belt and not want to see them at all. You know, does that make sense?
yeah.
Yeah, and I think the credible title run, which we're eventually going to get there, I think it was a deal where, like, and I could be completely wrong, and Paul probably didn't do this very much, but I think it was a guy that Paul Heyman liked, and he was a fan of him, and he just decided to make the guy the champion instead of. I think Just Incredible's the guy I'm thinking. Instead of thinking about business, Paul was just thinking, "I like this guy. I'm going to put the belt on him."
Well, he had an upside. I mean, in Paul's eyes, I'm only looking at this directly through Paul's eyes. He had a very valuable upside to Paul, and me being a fan and me being a worker in the locker room and watching it from 30,000 feet, he didn't. But I mean, you can't take that away from Paul being the business owner. He could trust Justin. He knew that Justin wasn't going to screw him, and Justin was also wearing a lot of hats. He put a lot of hats on the hats, Aaron, and he did a lot for the company. So he was just not somebody you put the belt on just for the sake of putting the belt on. He also did a lot for the company. Not saying that it's right, but it is what it is.
And the other thing I thought about him too was, and Chad, you might not know this or whatever, but do you guys think he was one of those guys that was, even when he was in ECW, he still had a WWE contract?
Yeah,
Started that way. I don't know if it was
that.
I don't know if it was that way into like 98 and 99, but I know in 97 that's how it started.
Until he failed a drug test. That's how it all started. Pick a name. Pick a company for that matter. That's how it all started. They all had contracts. They could all leave there whenever they wanted. All of them. So Dreamer, Dreamer can go to his fucking goddamn grave on this. He could die on this goddamn hill with ECW. Dreamer's not a drug guy. He wasn't going anywhere until he had to. But everybody else had, a means to the end, but they just couldn't pass a drug test. And that's just the bottom line, It's just the way it was. I mean, I still call him Pete because I refuse to call him Just Incredible. He'll tell you. I mean, I'm sure you've probably seen a shoot interview or two where he talked about his own problems. Raven was probably the guy that got him to that, took him to that park with Sandman's kid. Anybody ever seen what Sandman's kid's up to anyway these days? What rehabs he's in?
I heard he's going to join the Judgment Day soon.
Well, I'm joining it. Why not?
So instead of, there's really not, like I said, this episode of the show, we can kind of talk about the extracurricular stuff that they do, and then we can go through these cards. And when we get to to the matches that are on this TV show on these cards, then we can talk about the matches. But the show is essentially very well done in the aspect of showing footage of ECW wrestlers in Japan, the Japanese fans swarming them, the big footage of Tokyo and all the lights and everything, and it makes ECW look like a big deal. And I thought it was a really cool touch. Yeah, it was a really cool touch too to have Joey give that little monologue in the middle of the show, emphasizing the growth of ECW, talking about how
I wonder how much it cost Paul to fly Joey all the way over to Japan.
Oh, it cost him the cost of taping a poster to the ECW banner. That's how we knew Joey was in. That's how we knew he was in Japan, because they taped a Japanese poster to the banner behind him.
What you're saying is Joey gave Paul a receipt for Scotch tape. this is my going to Japan.
And he got some sushi takeout. Yeah, that was his going to Japan. He had some sushi there in the laundry room with him.
I would have totally loved, if I had the pencil, if I had the book, any of that nonsense. I would have loved to have. I'm sure you guys have all seen it. Archie's probably seen it. Any of the guys that listen to the show has probably seen any of the after matches of an IWA show or a wing show, whatever, when the guys are in the hallways, or when they're like we saw a little bit of Terry Gordy, with the boots and all that stuff. If we would just seen how when Wing used to do like an interview with the guy before the match, and they'd put you know what I mean? If they would have done it a little more in that style, but maybe they did for the home video release. I'm not sure. I'm only going by what we watched on Peacock or whatever. But I would have loved to seen it more done in that style. That would have been to me. That would have been more authentic.
Where they're still bloodied up in the hallway and taking the tape off, and everybody's interviewing them, and the flashes are going off and shit. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's good shit.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I would have thought, like, yeah, that to me is like is Kuroki and Hall. That's like the Japanese, and just the way the whole way the old videos of Wing and stuff was presented, where the whole entire beginning of the show would have been shown in Japanese lettering, and it would have been shown in blood red behind a black backdrop. I would have just loved that, because that to me would have been like, this is ECW in Japan.
Right.
They in my opinion, they just missed, and it's not that big of a deal because it is 96. They didn't know. It was their first time going over there. They just missed some of the subtleties that would have made it more authentic to people like me, people like, Aaron, you, Nate, that you guys would have seen the tapes when you're like, God damn, Mr. Pogo is all beat up in the hallway and he's beating up photographers, stuff like that, just that kind of stuff.
Let me see here. So the first night in Japan, this is not the one that we see on TV here. This is the Yokohama show. Let's see, there's 8 matches on this card. First match, the Black Hearts defeat Hiroshi Itakura and Leatherface.
So are these guys?
Would that have been Corporal Kushner?
Kion's guy.
Leatherface, probably.
It's not Kirshner.
It's not. Okay.
No. But are these guys? This is something that I wrote down for Nate probably to do his homework on. Are these Kion's guys? Or are these guys that were formerly Kion's guys? Because to me, this looks like it was a Sakuraba booking job.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have to look into that, because I didn't even think of that. Because let me see. So there's that match. The next match is Orito defeats Felinito.
Who the fuck are any of these fucking guys? Seriously, Dorito versus fucking Horonito.
Felinito.
Sound like an end cap at a Walmart.
Kiyoki Ichiki defeats Emi Motokawa. That's got to be a women's match, because Emi is a female.
That's a ladies match. That's a ladies match.
That's ladies match. Yeah, totally. That's probably the best match on the show.
Yeah. Keizo Matsuda and Tortuga defeat Jun Nagaka and Takeshi Saito.
Another bunch of just job guys.
Kensuke Yamada and Takashi Okano defeat
Yamada was on this show.
Flying Kid Ichichara and Ryo Miyake.
Flying Kid Ichichara is great.
I've never heard of him.
No, that's Ricky Fuji.
Okay.
Onita Jr. You never heard of Onita Jr.?
Yes, heard of. Yes. See, Japan. I am not in any way an expert on Japan. So
Yeah, this
I
is
get
early.
educated.
Yeah, this is totally early Flying Kid Ichikara. And then it was Kid Icarus against what? Donkey Kong?
Mega Man versus Bubba Ray Dudley defeated Katsumi Hirano.
More job, guys.
John Cronus and Perry Saturn defeated Tarzan Goto in a handicap match. I know, right? I was like, well, that's
Why?
random.
How much you want to bet that Goto's partner was injured earlier? Like, I bet he was.
And in the main event,
was Tarzan No Show was his partner.
No, his partner was I bet you it was probably that guy you said earlier, like Oneida. That one guy, because I know I used to see him all the time in the early prelims. I bet you it was him, but I bet you he got beat up so bad by like Bubba or something that he just didn't go back out.
Hey, sayonara. And then the main event for the Yokohama show is Terry Gordy and Tommy Dreamer defeating Raven and Stevie Richards.
Stevie showed up for that.
Well, Stevie's on this one too.
Oh yeah, I must have.
Actual
I must have
episode we're going to talk about.
I used to have these on handheld too. I probably still do. I had the whole entire tour on handheld.
So we'll get into the matches that we see on the TV show as we talk about this next card, because the second night in Japan is the Tokyo show, Sunday, August 11th, 1996.
Tokyo Dome show.
The Tokyo Dome. Orito again defeats Felinito. And that's Felinito, like not like a felon, but like a cat.
Oh, all right.
It's Felinto.
Felinto.
Felinito. Like he was gonna go in there and steal a win.
That would be better.
He's a Felinito.
It's Nails.
Or
Yeah.
and I was gonna say Repo Man.
Well, Felinto was a pretty big star in Mexico too, honestly.
Let's see here. Second match, the girls again. Emi defeats Kyoko. 6-man tag match, the third match. Hiroshi Itakura, I should say, Katsumi Hirano and Tortuga defeat, for fuck's sake, Akinoro Tsukioka, this flying kid dude, and Rio.
Honestly, if you would have said fuck's sake, I would have thought that probably was one of the workers.
Fuck Saki.
Yeah, I would have said it's Saki, mate. It's Saki.
Fuck's sake. Would probably be a wrestler over there. I would have believed you.
I can just hear the Japanese guy now. He's fuck's sake.
Fuck's sake.
He does a sober gimmick.
What about the guy they had like at the beginning of each match just quietly reading the contract? I was like, what the fuck is this?
Dude, yeah, who was the guy holding the gun to his head?
Because he's just like, I don't know.
Like, tell me that guy tell me for some reason that guy wasn't shitting his pants. What the fuck was he reading?
He was, well, Joey said, because at one point in my notes I put, what is this old guy reading? And then Joey does say during the tag match that the guy was reading the contract for the match. So they were just listening to this old guy read the contract for the match out loud.
Well, it wasn't long after this that the guy from Wing killed himself. It was only like a year and a half or so after this before the guy from Wing like shot himself and died. He committed suicide. So maybe he was reading the suicide note.
He's going to that suicide. He's going to that suicide forest over there.
Yeah, I have no idea, but I love that stuff, man. I wish they would do more of that. I love that. Even when WWE does like overseas tours, Like I love that stuff. It makes it sound like I love a long introduction. That to me is like it makes it seem so much more special. You know?
Yeah.
Like that guy that used to dress like Sergeant Pepper's and Only Hearts Club Band, and he'd do the introductions.
Yeah, that guy. I have no idea what you're talking about.
All right.
Stevie
Who?
Richards.
Stevie Richards dressed like a
No,
Sergeant Pepper?
no, I was going to the next match. God damn it. Stevie Richards defeated Keizo Matsuda. Leatherface and Terry Gordy defeated the Blackhearts.
Well, that was good. I bet.
Who is
Well,
this?
I mean,
Leatherface?
Who would be Leatherface then if it wasn't Kushner?
Kirshner. It was probably what's his name? Tom. I can't remember it. I can't remember his last name, but yeah, I know who it was. Yeah, he was also a Canadian guy.
Let me see here if this because they have a link. Okay, does the name
Was it
Rick
that-
does the name Rick Patterson ring a bell?
Yeah, that's who it. Yeah, it's it. Rick Patterson.
Okay, because they had a link here that I could.
If it wasn't Rick Patterson per se, it was somebody that Rick Patterson sent. Yeah, there's definitely a link there with Patterson. Yeah, it's cool. I got that. But Leatherface was just. I used to love all that stuff, man. I don't know about. Did you guys ever see all that stuff?
See, my one of the coolest things to me when I was like in my early 20s and I started being able to like expand because now I got my own fucking money and I can start expanding my wrestling videotape library and everything. One of my favorite things to acquire was just because it was something I'd never seen before. It blew my mind was those fucking FMW tapes. Like, what the fuck is like my first exposure to that? I'm like, what the fuck is this shit?
That Tokyo Pop put out or whatever.
Yes.
What you mean? That Japanese like low budget show?
Yes. And then they also had the exploding rings footage and like I don't know. I just remember in my early 20s when I was finally able to acquire stuff that wasn't like mass consumption stuff. I just ate that shit up like crazy for a couple of years.
I mean, I was fortunate enough that I got that stuff like very early.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got it from like 1990 when they were in LA and stuff. When like Onita was just like talking about that kind of stuff. I got it when they had like them stupid kickboxing guys and all them,
Mm-hmm.
all them Mitchells and stuff doing the shows. Sambo, Asakas, all them guys.
So the next match on the results here is one that we actually do get to see on this episode of ECW TV. It's the Eliminators defeating Yamada and Okano. And I wrote down, my notes on the match were that the match was good. I don't know who the fuck these guys are, but they did good.
They both went on to be somebody else. And I'm telling, I'm asking Nate to do his job on this one. Because you're going to be surprised at who they both ended up being. I'm not going to tell you.
So according to this thing, Yamada, his other ring names were Black Buffalo, Black Vampire Buffalo, Buffalo, Inaba No Buffalo, Inaba No Buffalo, Oryx Buffalo, Rojo del Sol, and Tayo Rojo.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was Buffalo Wild Wings. I thought he was in WCW too. I thought.
And then Takashi Okano, it says his other ring names were Dragon Winger, Okano,
Dragon Winger's good.
Shadow Winger, and Winger.
Yeah, Winger. Yeah, Winger's the guy that became the bigger breakout guy. He went to Puerto Rico and he went to Mexico but he was a Japanese guy. He wasn't going to,
Mm-hmm.
and he even did a couple matches in WCW. But I knew both of them guys had went on to do other stuff. I just didn't know that one guy went on to be working at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Well, I was just going to say, like, one of my new favorite wrestler names is Inaba no Buffalo.
That's how I'm going to order my wings now.
The only notes I have from this is, for one, it like 96 through 97, Cronus was so fucking good. Like a big dude doing all that shit. It was amazing to see. And then I don't know if you guys watched the whole match or whatever, but watching Buffalo Soldier and the other guy, um, they did that. They did like a double STF. I was like, I've never seen anybody do any. I've never seen that before or after, and I was like, that was a fucking cool looking spot. I thought.
Or you never saw SummerSlam 2009? That's cool.
There was a double STF in that.
Yeah, John Cena did it to like two of the people from the corporate or whatever.
Well, I meant like two guys doing an STF.
Oh, at the same time. No, I got you. I'm just busting your balls.
I know. I'm just saying. I just never seen two guys do. And that was just a spot that I wrote down. I was like, yeah, that was cool. But the match itself, it was pretty solid, and I enjoyed it.
And I also wrote down here a couple of my notes for the match were about the fans. First of all, Japanese fans are funny. And secondly, they were really into the Eliminators, were these Japanese fans.
Yeah, well, it wasn't Saturn's first trip there. That was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. As far as I remember, it was Bubba and Devon's first trip there, or at least on that level, because I do remember back maybe a year or so before when Saturn won over before he won over for Sakuraba for NOW. And then he did that stupid shoot nonsense over there. But he definitely had way more Japanese experience than the rest of the guys. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that Bubba and Bully Ray, like Bubba's somebody that knows that knows the business, and he probably knew it at a different level at that point than Devon did, and probably more than Cronus did too. But between him and Saturn, they knew what they were going to do. You know, they knew how to make that happen. I had nothing wrong with it. I thought it was completely solid, you know. Good shit.
Yeah, same here. Like I said, it was a really good match. And the crowd ate it up, and that's what it's all about, right?
I mean, yeah, usually the crowd don't get that responsive, you know. They don't really give responses at all. So just to be like they were loud, you know. I mean, loud for the Japanese, you know. Usually you just get like a somber. Oh.
I was to say when the ECW guys were in there, that crowd definitely didn't want to be like, you know, the normal whatever crowd. They wanted to be what they saw on ECW tapes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they wanted to be ECW Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and they certainly did a good job of well, they did it because we weren't going to do it anywhere else. You were going to do ECW Japan in Mexico. So yeah, they were there, and it just wasn't a whole lot of people, you know.
Well, of course, the next thing we get to see on TV is Paul Heyman. Paulie Dangerously has to go out in front of the Japan crowd and get his roses from the Japanese as they give him a Paulie chant.
And his khaki pants.
Pari, pari, pari.
Of course, Paul had to do that.
Yeah, and when that's what I wrote down here. I was like, Paul would not miss this opportunity at all.
No. If we would have had Twitter back then, he would have tagged Jim Cornette in that. What do you think about this, Corny?
How much you want to bet? How much you want to bet Paul figured out how to get his ticket as like a bereavement flight?
Oh, no, yeah. No, that was probably his second option. Oh, he definitely got business class. Like through one of the guys from the office that they may have had a bereavement. um, yeah, there was no chance that Paul Heyman was doing anything to pay for a dime of that flight.
That's what I was gonna say. He actually traveled as Steve Rickard or something. Yeah.
Jim Barnett. I can totally. I did. I wouldn't even argue that if somebody told me he traveled with Jim Barnett.
He just has to throw in one. Oh my boy.
My boy.
Blow somebody.
The Grand Wizard.
Well, the Grand Wizard was dead.
Or a man dressed like the Grand Wizard.
Jason.
I actually got a note in the next match of wondering who somebody blew to get over there because the Meanie Babe was even involved in the next match, and it's like, who did the Meanie Babe blow to get a ticket to go to Japan? Like, how did she show up?
Was she at ringside?
She's involved in the next match.
The next match is the ECW Championship match. Tommy Dreamer and Raven. And I mean, it's the same old Raven Dreamer shenanigans. You know, you've seen one Raven Dreamer match, you've seen them all.
Many of them.
But Aaron, do you have a lowdown for us for the match here?
Well,
no,
in response to the Meanie Babe, she probably booked a travel. That's probably how she got there. There's no reason to have her. There's none, right?
No.
I mean, are we going to argue over that?
Yeah, well, it's a good ECW brawl, and it was the good match to take a like. I know what we want to say about Tommy or whatever, but him and Raven was a big feud, and it was a good thing to take over there and give the Japanese fans the ECW experience of Tommy and Raven doing the ECW brawl. And Raven does get busted open, and it might be a stupid question or whatever, but like in wrestling, guys talk about like, you know, like who's the best bleeder or whatever. Like, you know, Dusty was a good bleeder and Flair was a good bleeder or whatever. Raven really was, in my opinion. Like that dude did a good job at getting color and just. I don't know if a good bleeder makes sense or whatever, but like when Raven would bust himself open, man, it was a spectacle, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
and he does a good job in this match.
Yeah, it isn't the most difficult thing to do, especially if you've done it on an occasion, as you know, as much as Raven has. It probably wasn't hard to do, but yeah, Raven's always been a pretty good bleeder. I'm just mad that I'm not a good bleeder. I can't figure that out. I volunteer to bleed all the time on shows, and
do you just get the little trickle? Is that all you can muster?
Yeah, they just put a little thumb Band-Aid on it.
And I've noticed that there are some wrestlers sometimes that you watch that somebody could beat the fuck out of their forehead, and it's just a little trickle coming down there. So I don't know.
Yeah, but like that's what I'm saying. Like Flair was good at it, and like Dusty were good at it because they had like the blonde hair, so they could just get a little bit of color and get it into their hair, and you could see it. But Raven had that big fucking mop of brown hair or whatever. But that dude just made it where he could just get it over his entire, like when he would really want to do it, man. Like his entire fucking face was literally a crimson mask. It was fucking great.
Well, that scar tissue helps out. When you can just gig that, you're not going to feel it for one, and you're not going to know how deep you're gigging to begin with. So yeah, that also helps out. I just never gigged enough. You know, I probably gigged maybe 12, 14 times ever. You know, and then after that, I was just like, it doesn't work. don't ask.
But yeah, like
Have
I
me-
said,
have me.
there's all the shenanigans with Stevie Richards getting involved in this match, and then like Aaron said, Patricia, the meanie babe, comes out. She gets involved in the match, and she's neutralized by Bueller or whatever. Tommy pile drives Patricia, but Raven winds up using a chair to get the pin on Tommy. And once again, like I said, I mean, it's not that it's bad, but if you've seen Dreamer Raven, you know what to expect. Lots of distractions, lots of bells and whistles.
What do you think it left the ECW crowd in Japan like?
Very happy. They got, like Aaron said, they got the ECW.
Yeah, they got they got the ECW American experience in Japan. So I think that was the way to go with it.
And then really quick before we wrap up and talk about our final thoughts about the show, the final match on this card, just for the record, just so it's out there, Tarzan Goto defeated Bubba Ray Dudley to retain the IWA Japan World Heavyweight title.
The IWGP title.
IWGP Go to Japan title.
Tarzan Goto defeated Bubba Dudley to retain the IWGP title in the Egg Dome. Yes. What a fucking show.
IWGP go to the IWGP go to the IWA bathroom at the Egg Dome?
In the Scrambled Egg Dome, yes.
Well, I mean, so that was a dark match, right?
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, for the ECW TV it was.
So why do you think that match was? Why do you think that they had Bubba out there to do that? I mean, that's an easy question. Nobody.
So the Japanese magazines could say that a Japanese star beat the big fat American man that came over.
And he can afford to take the loss.
Yeah, and it also didn't help with the politics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for future relationships, because Bubba, somebody that he would have volunteered for that job to begin with. Let me go out there and work Goto. I'll do the job. It'll completely just keep the relationship open. You know, Sabu wasn't going to do it. You know, I mean, nobody could find Sandman. You know, I mean, there was nobody else to do it. So yeah, Bubba Ray was the only guy probably in the locker room still that said, "Yeah, I'll do that shit."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it made sense, and I have no problem with that at all. And like you said, Aaron, that the people went home happy. They got, especially if they had the merch there. If they had the merch there, they went home extremely happy.
Oh yeah, they show that during that footage where they show the wrestlers, you know, interacting with the fans and stuff. I could definitely see a merch table in the background, so they definitely brought that with them.
Well, I know that they ran out of merch. They ran out of merch twice. And they didn't even have from what Jeff told me is they didn't even have merch for some of the other shows. Like they sold everything on like one or two shows, all of it, everything. Like they were selling stuff that was taped to the table, like you know, like they had the tape, the shirt taped down.
The displays.
They sold. If it was there, they sold it all. So that's a great sign. Because you figure, what is Paul going to think going over there? What was pre-sale? Probably halfway next to, medium. It's Kurokian Hall. 95% of the Kurokian Hall ticket buyers are walk-ups.
What do you think? What do you think Paulie's split with the promoter over there was? You think it was 50-50 or?
Not a chance. Not even close.
No.
It was nowhere in Paul's favor at all. Nowhere.
But he, for his, I guess from his perspective is even if he only gets 20%, he can take this back to the States and his company looks like an international wrestling organization.
He probably didn't pay any like transportation and probably just got that footage and probably 20% of the gate.
That was all Paul's deal. I can guarantee you 100%. It was 100. It was all IWA. I'm not going to use the word Yakuza. I'm going to say IWE funded. they took him over there, and Paul and Paul's deal was he gets 100% of the merchandise, and the boys are going to get taken care of probably on a 70-30 basis, probably even more than that, maybe 80-20. You know, because I'm sure their meal allowances and all that stuff was taken care of by the
Right.
by
those
the
guys probably didn't pay for anything.
yeah, no, yeah, you're right. So yeah, so it was definitely in Paul's favor to go over there. And if it cost him anything, it may have cost him maybe in the low tens of thousands of dollars, if any, if you know, if that. You know, if we're going to be subjective about it, you know.
Well, I'd say overall, ECW's TV show that they produced here using the footage from Japan, they achieved their goal. They made, this show made ECW look like an international phenomenon, and
And they needed it.
Yeah, the presentation I thought was done really well. The episode was produced well. Like, we joke now about Joey taping the poster up behind him and stuff, but I mean, they did what they could, and they did what they could with what they had, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good job on their part.
Yeah, good stuff, man. I mean, ECW needed it. It completely helped them solidify themselves as a global brand. If we're going to use that word, global, it completely helped them expand their audience. And it just made them look bigger, Granted that some of the guys that they use on the show, like fucking Yamaha, Nagasaki, whatever, like just take all that shit out of the equation. It didn't matter who they had out there, as long as they saw, the guys that they recognized, the Rob Van Dam, Sabu's, Bubba Ray's. Mm-hmm. It was ECW,
Hell, and your average American fan, for all they know, those two guys the Eliminators wrestled, those are big stars in Japan. Because your average American fan had no fucking clue. So
where was 911? Where was Mikey?
They left 911 in Mongolia
by accident. Yeah,
where was Mikey at? The episode, like I said, it didn't have I don't want to say it didn't have a lot going on. It obviously didn't feed any storylines because it wasn't going, and that wasn't the purpose of it. But it made the company look like a success, and it made them look like an international product, and had a different feel to it aesthetically. You know what I mean? So. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, look, we went over. It's like, oh, like Nate, you read down that card. There was probably 4 ECW guys on it.
Yes, and I wanted to say really quick.
When you show the building, there's 2,200 people in it. So it looks like ECW sold out a 2,200 seat arena in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I wanted to say really quick, since you mentioned that, thank you to our listeners for soldiering through listening to me trip over these fucking Japanese names.
Yeah, Yamaha, Kentucky Fried Chicken Yaki. Fuck you said. Embarrassing.
Egg roll Suzuki, ladies and gentlemen.
Scotty Asher is going to have a field day with this show.
Buffalo teriyaki.
Flying kid, itchy ankle.
Itchy crotch. Flying kid, itchy crotch.
I can't wait for Scotty Asher to hear this one.
That being said, guys, go ahead.
It was great. ECW needed it, definitely, for their brand expansion. It just goes without saying. It was a good show for what they needed. It wasn't a great show for ECW per se. Mm-hmm. It was a great show for what they needed, and that's what they needed. So that goes a long way, as opposed to just the product itself. If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And yeah, like I said, I'm not one of those guys that, like MJF said, I'm not one of those guys that pretends to watch Japanese wrestling. I don't. So I'm not always great with the names. I watch selected stuff that I want to see, but I enjoyed this. I thought it was good. Like I said, the presentation from ECW.
I'd love to know what you watch, honestly. we got to talk off.
Currently right now I'm watching the Papo's ICW stuff. So
Nowhere close. No, I am. Good Lord, you got problems. Bob Roop, Bob Orton. I mean, come on.
Bob Roop, the stoop with Bob Roop.
Bob Poop. Like Bob Poop.
All right, it's time to go. Parting words, Chad, Aaron, anything to say to our listeners now that we're back in action here on the podcast?
Yeah, Ricky Choshu, 81. 82.
God bless you.
Yeah, look him up.
Konnichi-
Yeah, thanks for
Konnichiwa.
listening, guys. It was a good show, man. I had a good time. And I look forward to doing more of them.
Well, I know we're getting to something big, or something, I guess in ECW, we're getting to something big because the little screen capture that they have for next week's episode on Peacock shows Gary Wolf in the halo. So,
Gary Hart.
Gary, this is my Oriental. My Oriental.
Oh, I gotta get into that again.
Arito from he's my Asian. My
We're
Asian.
not
All
gonna
is
get
not
into
as
that
black.
This is my buffalo wing, my black buffalo wing. He's black, very black.
My Chili's.
Did I say he was black?
My Applebee's.
My Latino. No, he never said Latino, just Latin. My Latin.
His car washy. And he can say all that stuff as long as Al Perez is in the background. He just called Gary Wolf and all that stuff.
Latin Al Perez, my fat black Abdullah the Butcher.
We couldn't do a show without mentioning Gary Wolf. I mean Gary
Hart.
Gary Hart. It just it goes without saying.
I'm just going to start doing the show as Gary Hart.
Okay.
Gary Hart, I gotta pee.
Yeah, all right, me too. Thanks, guys. We'll see everybody next week.
A-Dub.